Elsa's hands trembled as she stared at the contract before her. The ink, still fresh, seemed to taunt her, reminding her of the impossible choice she had just made. She had sold herself, her body, her freedom, and her future, to a man who didn't believe in love. A man who, for all the world knew, was incapable of it. Harvey Sinclair sat across from her, his sharp, unreadable gaze locked onto hers. He leaned back in his chair, fingers tapping rhythmically on the table. "You're hesitating," he said, voice smooth yet void of warmth. Elsa swallowed the lump in her throat. I need to know one thing. Are you really as heartless as they say?" The corner of Harvey's lips twitched, not quite a smirk, not quite a frown. "You'll find out soon enough." She should have walked away. She should have run. But her grandmother was dying, and Elsa had nothing left to bargain with, nothing but herself. And so, with a deep breath, she signed away her life. The wedding was over in less than 30 minutes. No extravagant decorations, no emotional vows, no joyful celebration. Just a cold, practical exchange of rings and signatures. Elsa stood in the lavish penthouse where she now lived as Mrs. Harvey Sinclair, feeling more like an object than a bride. The dress she wore was beautiful but impersonal, chosen by Harvey's assistant. The vows had been mechanical, spoken with all the warmth of a business deal. Even the wedding dinner had been brief, attended only by Harvey's childhood friend, Mike, and Elsa's tearful grandmother, who was too sick to question anything. Now, in the silence of their shared home, reality hit her. She was married to a stranger. Harvey leaned against the doorframe of their bedroom, arms crossed. He had changed into a crisp white shirt, the top buttons undone, revealing a glimpse of the toned body the world admired. He had the kind of face women lost their minds over, sharp jawline, piercing eyes, lips that always held an air of mystery. But all Elsa could feel was tension. He studied her for a moment before finally speaking. "We don't have to pretend to be something we're not. This is a contract, not a real marriage." Elsa's fingers tightened around the edge of her dress. "I know." "Good." His voice was void of emotion. "The rules are simple. You stay out of my business, and I stay out of yours. We will attend public events together when necessary, but behind closed doors, we live separate lives." Elsa nodded, pretending it didn't sting. Then his eyes darkened slightly. "And one more thing." She held her breath. "I will never touch you unless you ask me to." Her cheeks burned. Was that supposed to be a comfort? She wasn't naive. She knew that in contractual marriages like this, physical intimacy was expected. But Harvey didn't even seem remotely interested. Before she could respond, he pushed off the doorframe and walked past her, heading for the door. "Sleep well, Mrs. Sinclair." And just like that, he was gone. Elsa sat stiffly on the edge of the enormous bed, her fingers gripping the fabric of her dress as she listened to the quiet hum of the city beyond the penthouse windows. She had imagined her wedding night differently once, filled with warmth, whispered promises, and the slow unraveling of love. Instead, she was alone. Harvey had left without a backward glance, making it clear that whatever expectations she had, she needed to throw them out the window. This wasn't love. This wasn't even companionship. This was a deal. With a deep breath, she stood and walked toward the closet, opening it hesitantly. Rows of luxurious clothing hung neatly, all new, all untouched. None of them were hers, until now. The realization made her uneasy. This world, this life, wasn't meant for her. She reached for a silk nightgown, pausing when the bedroom door suddenly creaked open. Harvey stood there, leaning against the doorframe, his sleeves rolled up and his sharp gaze locked onto her. Elsa's heart stuttered. I thought you left." "I did," he said simply, stepping into the room. He glanced at the bed before looking back at her. "I just came to make sure you're settled." "I'm fine, Shalit." Harvey raised an eyebrow, but he didn't call her out on it. Instead, he walked toward the window, staring out at the night sky. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them felt suffocating. Finally, Elsa swallowed her pride and spoke. "Why did you marry me?" Harvey didn't turn around. You already know why. He said. I know what you said. But I don't understand it. She clenched her fists. You could have picked anyone. Someone who actually fits into your world. Someone rich. Why me? He exhaled through his nose, finally turning to face her. His expression was unreadable, but there was something in his eyes, something guarded. Because you're naive enough not to try and take advantage of me. Elsa frowned. What's that supposed to mean? It means I've been burned before, Elsa. His voice was quiet but firm. I don't trust women who come into my life easily. I don't trust love, either. It's a weakness. A chill ran down her spine at his words. He spoke as if love was a disease, something to be feared. Elsa crossed her arms. Not all women are like, whoever hurt you. Harvey let out a hollow chuckle. That's what they all say. He rolled his eyes. Elsa wanted to argue, but what was the point? He had already made up his mind. To him, she was just another transaction. Another pawn in a game she didn't understand. Harvey checked his watch. I have an early meeting tomorrow. You should sleep. Elsa's throat tightened. Where will you sleep? He smirked slightly, the first real expression she'd seen from him all night. Don't worry. I won't invade your precious space. Before she could respond, he turned and left, leaving her alone in the cold, empty room. Elsa sat down on the bed, pulling the blanket around herself. This was her life now. Married to a man who didn't believe in love. Tied to someone who refused to let her in. And worst of all, she had no idea how to protect her heart from him. The morning light streamed through the enormous windows, casting golden hues over the pristine white sheets. Elsa groggily opened her eyes, momentarily forgetting where she was. The unfamiliar ceiling, the luxurious bed, the subtle scent of expensive cologne lingering in the air, it all came rushing back to her. She was married to Harvey Sinclair now. The thought alone made her stomach twist. For the past 5 years, Elsa had been struggling to survive, hopping between part-time jobs, worrying about rent, and barely affording food. Now, she was in a penthouse where a single piece of furniture probably cost more than everything she had ever owned. Yet, despite the luxury, she had never felt so alone. She sighed and sat up, glancing at the empty space beside her. Not that she had expected Harvey to be there. He had made his stance clear last night. I will never touch you unless you ask me to. The words had burned into her brain. Not that she wanted him to touch her. Right? Shaking the thought away, she slipped out of bed and made her way to the adjoining bathroom. The place was massive, lined with sleek marble and glass. A separate vanity had been set up for her, stocked with high-end skincare products she had never even heard of. Elsa hesitated before picking up a bottle. Everything felt too much, too big, too expensive, and too foreign. She quickly washed up and changed into a simple sweater and jeans from the closet, avoiding the luxurious dresses that screamed money. The thought of parading around in something that probably cost thousands made her uneasy. As she made her way downstairs, the scent of coffee filled the air. She paused at the sight of Harvey sitting at the dining table, dressed in a crisp white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. His dark hair was slightly tousled, as if he hadn't gotten much sleep. For a moment, she debated turning around. Too late. He looked up. You're awake, he said, his voice calm but unreadable. Elsa shifted on her feet. Yeah. I woke up not long ago. He gestured toward the opposite chair. Eat something. It wasn't an invitation. It was an order. Elsa hesitated before slowly sitting down. The table was filled with food, freshly baked croissants, eggs, bacon, and fruit neatly arranged on platters. She frowned slightly. Did you make all this? She asked, half joking. Harvey raised an eyebrow. Do I look like someone who cooks? She snorted before she could stop herself. Not really. A ghost of a smirk touched his lips, but it was gone just as quickly. The chef made it before he left. Elsa picked up a piece of toast, nibbling at it. The silence between them stretched, thick with unspoken words. Harvey finally broke it. What are your plans today?
Elsa blinked, caught off guard. I don't know.
You don't have work. She stiffened, gripping the toast a little tighter.
I quit my part-time jobs before the wedding.
I couldn't exactly keep waiting tables now that I'm, she hesitated, the word feeling strange on her tongue. Married. Harvey sipped his coffee, studying her. You're educated. You went to Harvard.
You could do something better than working in a cafe.
Elsa's jaw tightened. Not everyone gets a job handed to them on a silver platter. Harvey didn't flinch at her sharp tone. If anything, he looked amused. I never said they did. Elsa sighed, feeling exhausted already. I was looking for a proper job before everything happened. It's not easy. Harvey leaned back in his chair, watching her intently. Would you like me to help? Elsa stiffened.
No.
He raised an eyebrow. Why not? Because I don't want to be another person who takes advantage of you, she said firmly.
A flicker of something. Surprise?
Amusement crossed his face. Then, he chuckled, a low, deep sound that sent an unexpected shiver down her spine. You're interesting, Elsa. She frowned. I wasn't trying to be. Harvey stood, picking up his coffee cup. I have meetings all day. The driver will take you anywhere you need to go. I can take the subway, she muttered. He smirked.
You're a Sinclair now.
No wife of mine will take the subway. The way he said it made Elsa bristle. I don't need special treatment. I don't care what you need, he said simply. Use the driver. And with that, he walked away, leaving Elsa staring after him, frustration burning in her chest. She had married a man she didn't understand. And she had no idea what she had gotten herself into. Elsa spent the rest of the day wandering through the massive penthouse, feeling more like a visitor than someone who actually lived there. Every inch of the place screamed wealth, expensive artwork on the walls, designer furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum, and floor-to-ceiling windows that displayed the entire city below. But there was something cold about it.
No personal photos.
No signs of warmth or life.
Just like Harvey.
With a sigh, she found herself in the kitchen, staring at the untouched appliances. Cooking had always been something that grounded her, something familiar in an unfamiliar world. Maybe she could make something. Rolling up her sleeves, she opened the fridge and found an overwhelming amount of ingredients. She decided on something simple. Pancakes. A small comfort in a life that no longer felt like hers. She had just flipped the first pancake when a deep voice startled her. You cook. Elsa nearly dropped the spatula, spinning around to see Harvey leaning against the counter. He had changed into a sleek black suit, looking effortlessly powerful. His sharp eyes flicked to the pan, then back to her.
Elsa hesitated before nodding. Yeah, I like cooking.
Harvey glanced at the flour on her hands, then at the batter. Didn't know you had it in you. Elsa raised an eyebrow. Why? Because I went to Harvard. A smirk played on his lips. Because most people in your position would be lounging by the pool, enjoying the perks of marrying a billionaire. She bristled. I'm not most people. I'm starting to see that. Ignoring him, Elsa turned back to us the stove, flipping the pancake onto a plate. She reached for another, but Harvey suddenly moved closer, reaching for the same plate. Their hands brushed.
Elsa inhaled sharply.
Harvey didn't move away. His fingers lingered against hers for a fraction of a second too long before he finally took the plate and stepped back. He sat at the counter, taking a bite. Elsa waited, arms crossed. Well. He chewed slowly, his expression unreadable. Then, after what felt like an eternity, he nodded. Not bad. Elsa let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. I wasn't looking for your approval, she muttered, grabbing her own plate and sitting across from him. Harvey smirked. Sure you weren't. They ate in silence for a while, the atmosphere strangely calm. Then Harvey spoke again. So, what are you planning to do with your time? Elsa wiped her mouth.
What do you mean?
You don't have a job. You don't have responsibilities here. So what's your plan?
Elsa hesitated. I don't know.
I never expected to be here. Harvey studied her. If you want to work, I can make a few calls. She stiffened. I told you, I don't need your help. His expression didn't change. Why are you so stubborn? Because I don't want to owe you more than I already do, Elsa snapped, then immediately regretted it. Harvey's jaw tensed slightly.
You don't owe me anything, Elsa.
She scoffed. Oh, really? You paid for my grandmother's surgery.
You married me. You've given me a life I don't belong in.
That's a pretty big debt. Harvey set his fork down, his gaze piercing. I don't see it that way. Well, I do. A tense silence stretched between them. Then Harvey leaned back in his chair, watching her like she was a puzzle he couldn't quite figure out.
Fine. Do whatever you want.
But the offer stands. Elsa didn't reply. She hated how easily he got under her skin. And she hated even more how, for a moment, sitting across from him, eating breakfast like a normal couple, it had almost felt real. But it wasn't. It never would be. The next morning, Elsa woke up to the smell of fresh coffee.
She groggily sat up, blinking against the sunlight streaming through the curtains.
The penthouse was eerily quiet, except for the faint sounds of someone moving around in the kitchen. Frowning, she slipped out of bed, wrapped a robe around herself, and made her way toward the source of the noise. And then she stopped. Harvey was sitting in the kitchen, his sleeves rolled up, with a cup of coffee in hands as he sits on the counter. She had never seen him like this before, so casual. For a moment, she just stood there, watching him. Then he glanced up. You look like you've seen a ghost. Elsa cleared her throat. I just didn't expect you to be here. Harvey smirked slightly.
I live here, remember?
Elsa rolled her eyes and walked past him to grab a glass of water. I mean, I didn't expect to see you awake this early. Harvey took a slow sip of his coffee. Couldn't sleep.
Elsa hesitated.
Me neither. He studied her for a moment, then gestured toward the bar stool.
Sit.
She declined, preferring to watch him as he grabbed another mug and poured her a cup of coffee. Sugar? He asked. Elsa nodded.
2 spoons.
He raised an eyebrow but said nothing as he stirred the coffee and handed it to her. She took a sip, surprised at how good it was. You make a decent cup of coffee, Elsa said, leaning against the counter, with her arms on it. I had to learn. Can't trust people to get it right. Elsa gave him a look. You mean, you can't trust people, period. Harvey didn't deny it. Silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken words. Then, finally, he broke it.
About yesterday.
Elsa glanced up, heart pounding slightly. Yeah.
Harvey exhaled.
I meant what I said.
I'll be at the hospital with you.
She studied him carefully. Why? I mean, really. Why? Harvey's jaw tightened. For a moment, she thought he wasn't going to answer. Then he said, almost too quietly, because no one was there for me when I needed them the most.
A chill ran down Elsa's spine.
Before she could press further, Harvey pushed off the counter. I'll be at the office for most of the day.
If you need anything, tell Thomas.
And just like that, the moment was gone. He walked out, leaving Elsa leaning there with her untouched coffee, her mind racing with questions. Who had abandoned him? And why did it feel like, despite everything, Harvey Sinclair was lonelier than she was? Elsa sat in the kitchen long after Harvey had left, her fingers curled around the warm mug of coffee. The silence in the penthouse felt heavier than usual, pressing against her like an invisible force. Because no one was there for me when I needed them the most. His words played over and over in her head. She had never really stopped to wonder about Harvey's past. It had been easier to believe the media's version of him, a heartless billionaire, emotionally closed off, rumored to be gay because he refused to be seen with women. But now, she wasn't so sure. He wasn't just distant. He was guarded. And that made her wonder, what had happened to him? The day passed slowly. Elsa spent most of it by herself, trying to read but failing miserably. Every time she turned a page, her mind drifted back to Harvey. By evening, she found herself pacing the living room, waiting for him to come back. Which was ridiculous. Why was she even thinking about him this much? She shook her head, frustrated with herself. Just as she was about to head to her room, the sound of the front door unlocking made her freeze. Harvey walked in, looking exhausted. His tie was gone, the top buttons of his shirt undone, and there was a slight frown on his face. Their eyes met. For a brief second, something unspoken passed between them. Then, Harvey sighed and rubbed the back of his neck. Long day. Elsa hesitated before speaking.
Do you want to eat?
He looked surprised. You cooked? No, she said quickly. But I can heat something up. Harvey stared at her for a moment before nodding. Sure. A few minutes later, they were sitting at the dining table, eating in silence. It was strange. Before, they had barely spoken unless necessary. Now, there was an odd sense of familiarity between them, like the ice was starting to crack. Elsa cleared her throat. So, how was your day? Harvey raised an eyebrow. You want to hear about business meetings and boardroom drama? Maybe. She shrugged.
You never talk about work.
Harvey smirked slightly.
Trust me, you'd be bored. Elsa tilted her head.
Try me. Harvey sighed, leaning back in his chair. Fine. I spent half the day arguing with a group of investors who think they know my company better than I do. The other half was spent trying to fix a deal that someone almost screwed up. Elsa frowned. That sounds exhausting. You have no idea. She hesitated. And the people at your company, do they at least respect you?
Harvey's expression darkened.
They fear me. Elsa's stomach twisted. Is that what you want? Harvey held her gaze.
It's what I need.
His words sent a shiver down her spine. She didn't understand him. One moment, he was kind, offering to be there for her, making her coffee. The next, he was this cold, untouchable man who refused to let anyone in. Harvey, Elsa started, unsure of what she was even going to say. But he cut her off.
I have a question for you.
She blinked. What? His eyes flickered with something unreadable. What do you really think of me? The question caught her off guard.
Elsa hesitated, feeling her heart pound.
I think you're complicated. Harvey chuckled, but there was no humor in it. That's one way to put it. Elsa took a deep breath. I also think you're not as cruel as you want people to believe. Harvey went still. For the longest time, he didn't say anything. Then, in a quiet voice, he asked, and what makes you think that? Elsa held his gaze. Because cruel men don't constantly check up on their wives or make their coffee in the morning. A tense silence stretched between them. Harvey's jaw tightened, as if he wanted to deny it, but he didn't. Instead, he pushed back his chair and stood up.
Get some sleep, Elsa.
Tomorrow is going to be a long day. Then he walked away, leaving Elsa alone with a strange, sinking feeling in her chest. She had touched something buried deep inside him. And she wasn't sure if that was a good thing or a dangerous one. The rain tapped against the windows, a soft but steady rhythm that filled the silence of the penthouse.
Elsa lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind restless.
She couldn't stop thinking about Harvey. His reaction at dinner, the way he had shut down the moment she mentioned his past, it was too familiar. People who had nothing to hide didn't react that way. People who weren't hurting didn't build walls so high. Elsa turned onto her side, exhaling deeply. She had agreed to this marriage knowing it was nothing more than a contract. She had told herself she wouldn't care about the man she had married. But now, she wasn't so sure. The next morning, Elsa found Harvey sitting in the living room, staring at the fire burning in the fireplace. It was unusual. He was always up early, dressed in his sharp suits, heading to work before she even woke up. But today, he was still in his black pajama pants and a fitted long-sleeve shirt, his hair slightly messy, his face unreadable.
Elsa hesitated before stepping forward. "Are you okay?"
Harvey didn't look at her. Why wouldn't I be? Elsa sighed, sitting on the opposite couch.
"You barely slept, did you?"
Harvey smirked faintly. "Did you?" She ignored the deflection.
"I meant what I said last night."
"I know you're hiding something. And I know you think keeping people away protects you, but—" "Elsa," he interrupted, his voice quieter now. "Let it go." She clenched her fists. "I can't." Finally, Harvey turned to face her. His eyes weren't cold this time. They weren't guarded. They were tired. Exhausted. And for the first time, Elsa saw not just the ruthless billionaire but the man beneath the armor. Harvey rubbed his temple before leaning back.
"You want to know about my past?" Elsa's breath caught.
"Yes." He was silent for a long moment. Then, he exhaled, his voice eerily calm. "My mother died when I was 10.
Elsa's eyes widened.
"Oh." He didn't look at her. He just stared at the fire, as if lost in a different time. "My father, he wasn't the same after that," Harvey continued, his tone distant. "She was the only person he ever loved. So when she was gone, it was like he stopped existing, too. He buried himself in work. He never looked at me the same way again." Elsa's chest tightened.
"Harvey."
"He remarried a year later."
"A woman named Vivian." Harvey let out a humorless laugh.
"She was young, beautiful, and incredibly manipulative. She didn't care about my father. She cared about his money. And he was too blind with grief to see it." Elsa felt her stomach sink.
Harvey's voice grew colder. "She hated me.
I was the obstacle between her and my father's fortune. She did everything to make my life miserable. And my father, he let her." Elsa swallowed hard. What did she do? Harvey finally looked at her. She convinced him that I was a problem. That I was difficult. That I needed to be sent away. Elsa's heart pounded. Sent away. Harvey smirked, but there was no amusement in it.
"Boarding school." At 13. Elsa inhaled sharply.
"I spent years in that hellhole, being raised by strangers, while my father built a new family with her. By the time I came back, I had already learned my lesson. People will always betray you if given the chance."
Elsa shook her head.
"That's not true." Harvey tilted his head. "Isn't it?" She wanted to argue. She wanted to tell him that not everyone was like that. But looking at him now, at the raw pain he had buried beneath years of ice, she realized that words wouldn't be enough. Harvey leaned back, exhaling deeply. Then came Olivia.
Elsa's breath hitched.
She had heard that name before.
Olivia Carson.
The woman who had scammed Harvey and disappeared with millions of dollars. The woman who had broken him. Harvey's jaw clenched. "I met her when I was 25. She was perfect. Or at least, I thought she was.
She made me believe she loved me, that I wasn't alone anymore."
Elsa's throat tightened. "But she didn't." Harvey's voice turned bitter.
"No. She loved my money.
My power. And when she had enough, she left." Elsa could see it now, the layers of pain, the reasons for his walls. First his mother. Then his father. Then the woman he had loved. No wonder he had shut the world out. Elsa's fingers curled into the fabric of the couch. "I'm sorry." Harvey chuckled, but it was empty. "Don't be. It was a long time ago." They sat in silence, the fire crackling softly between them. Then, slowly, cautiously, Elsa moved closer. Harvey stiffened slightly but didn't pull away. "You don't have to be alone anymore, Harvey," she whispered. For a moment, he didn't move. Then, so quietly she almost didn't hear it, he murmured, "I don't know how to be anything else." Elsa's heart ached. She wanted to reach out, to take away even a fraction of his pain. But she knew that Harvey Sinclair was a man who had built his life on control. And the only way he would ever let her in was if he chose to. For now, she would wait. Even if it meant standing outside his walls, hoping that one day, he would open the door. The morning of Elsa's grandmother's surgery was colder than usual, a bitter wind sweeping through the city as if the universe itself sensed the tension in the air.
Elsa barely slept the night before.
She had spent most of it pacing her room, checking her phone, and going through the hospital documents over and over again. When she finally left the room, she found Harvey in the living room, dressed in a fitted black suit, staring out of the window with a distant expression. He turned when he heard her footsteps. "Ready?" Elsa swallowed hard, nodding. "Yeah." Neither of them spoke much on the drive to the hospital. Elsa's hand rested on the steering wheel, her eyes focused on the road. Elsa kept fidgeting with the edge of her shirt, anxiety twisting in her stomach. The moment they arrived at the hospital, Elsa rushed ahead. The scent of antiseptic filled her nostrils as she hurried through the hallways, her heart pounding in her chest. "Grandma!" she called out as she entered the hospital room. Her grandmother lay in bed, looking frail but smiling weakly.
"My darling," she whispered, reaching for Elsa's hand.
Elsa grasped it tightly, her eyes burning with unshed tears.
"How are you feeling?"
Her grandmother chuckled softly, like a woman who is about to have doctors poking around inside her.
Elsa let out a shaky laugh.
A deep voice interrupted them.
"She'll be fine."
Elsa turned, surprised to see Harvey standing at the door. He had his hands in his pockets, his expression unreadable. "Harvey," Elsa's grandmother said, her eyes twinkling with something mischievous. "I've been hearing a lot about you."
Harvey raised a brow. "Good things, I hope?"
She smiled. "Depends. Are you treating my granddaughter well?" Elsa's face turned hot, but Harvey smirked slightly. "She's the one bullying me, actually." Elsa shot him a look, but her grandmother chuckled. "Good. You need someone to keep you in check." The room grew quiet after that, the weight of the upcoming surgery settling over them. A nurse entered. "It's time." Elsa felt her chest tighten as her grandmother was wheeled away. She clutched Harvey's sleeve, her fingers trembling. Without a word, Harvey took her hand and squeezed it. They sat in the waiting area, time moving painfully slow.
Elsa could barely breathe.
She kept glancing at the doors, waiting, hoping, praying. Harvey never let go of her hand. And then, the doctor appeared. Elsa jumped to her feet. "Doctor, is she?" The doctor smiled. The surgery was successful. Elsa's legs nearly gave out in relief. Harvey's arm wrapped around her waist, steadying her. She turned to him, eyes shining.
"She's okay."
He nodded, watching her carefully. "I told you she would be." Elsa wiped at her eyes, laughing softly. "Thank you, Harvey." Something flickered in his eyes, something unreadable. But before either of them could say more, a commotion erupted near the hospital entrance. Shouting. Panic. Then, gunshots. Elsa froze. Harvey's grip on her tightened, his body immediately moving to shield hers. "Stay behind me," he ordered, his voice sharp and controlled. Elsa's heart pounded as hospital security rushed toward the entrance. A masked man stood near the doorway, holding a gun, yelling at the staff. "Someone is trying to rob a hospital." Elsa whispered in disbelief. Harvey's jaw clenched. "It's not a robbery." Elsa looked up at him.
"What do you mean?" Harvey's eyes darkened.
"I recognize that man." Elsa's stomach dropped. "Who is he?" Harvey's lips pressed into a thin line. "He used to work for me."
Elsa's blood ran cold.
Before she could ask anything else, the man spotted Harvey across the room. And then, he pointed the gun at them.
"Harvey Sinclair," the man shouted. "You ruined my life." Elsa's breath hitched.
Harvey remained still, his body tense, his expression unreadable. Elsa, however, could see the truth in his eyes. This wasn't just some disgruntled employee. This was personal. And suddenly, Elsa realized. Harvey's past wasn't just a story. It was still chasing him. And now, it had found her too. The hospital lobby was frozen in chaos. Patients cowered behind chairs, nurses whispered frantic prayers, and security hesitated, unsure whether to act. But Elsa felt nothing but ice running through her veins. The masked man's gun was pointed directly at Harvey, his hand steady, his eyes filled with hatred.
"You ruined my life, Sinclair," the man snarled.
Harvey remained unnervingly calm. He took a slow step forward, his hands raised slightly in a pacifying gesture. "I don't even know your name," Harvey said, his voice low and steady. "If I ruined your life, you're going to have to be more specific." The man's grip on the gun tightened. Elsa's pulse roared in her ears. One wrong move and... No. She had to do something. Harvey had protected her since the day she agreed to this marriage. Now, it was her turn. She wasn't going to let someone else take him away from her. Without thinking, Elsa took a deep breath and stepped in front of Harvey.
Gasps rippled through the crowd.
Harvey's arm shot out to grab her, but she shook him off. "Elsa," he hissed.
"What the hell are you doing?"
She ignored him. Instead, she locked eyes with the gunman. "If you want to kill him, you'll have to kill me first." A stunned silence filled the room.
Harvey cursed under his breath.
The man blinked, momentarily thrown off. "What?" "You heard me," Elsa said firmly. She took a slow step forward, forcing herself to ignore the terror clawing at her chest. "You came in here waving a gun, shouting about how Harvey ruined your life," she continued. "But I don't see a broken man.
I see someone desperate.
Someone who doesn't know what else to do." The man swallowed hard, his fingers twitching over the trigger. "Shut up," he muttered. Elsa took another step closer. "Whatever he did, this isn't the way," she said, her voice unwavering. "Do you really want to spend the rest of your life running? Hiding?
Regretting?"
The man's breathing turned ragged. "Shut up." He raised the gun higher. And then, Harvey moved.
Fast.
Before Elsa could blink, Harvey lunged forward, grabbing the gunman's wrist and twisting it sharply.
A gunshot rang out. The bullet hit the ceiling, sending plaster raining down.
In the next second, Harvey swept the man's legs out from under him, slamming him onto the hospital floor with terrifying precision. A pained grunt escaped the attacker's lips as Harvey pinned his arm down, twisting it at a brutal angle. "Drop it," Harvey ordered. His voice was calm. Cold. Dangerous. The man groaned, his fingers loosening around the weapon.
The gun clattered to the floor.
Security rushed in, tackling the man and restraining him with zip ties. It was over. Elsa let out a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. Harvey stood up slowly, brushing imaginary dust from his sleeves. Then, he turned to Elsa. "What the hell was that?" he demanded, his voice low and sharp. Elsa swallowed hard. I was trying to help." Harvey's jaw clenched.
"You could have gotten yourself killed."
She crossed her arms. "And so could you." Harvey opened his mouth, then closed it. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then, unexpectedly, Harvey exhaled a laugh. A quiet, disbelieving chuckle. "You're insane," he murmured, shaking his head. Elsa smiled slightly.
"So are you."
The tension in his shoulders eased just a little. But then, he turned to the restrained gunman, his expression darkening. "Take him to the police," Harvey instructed the security team. "And make sure they call my lawyer. I want to know exactly who sent him." The man glared up at him. "I wasn't sent by anyone," he spat.
Harvey crouched down, his voice dangerously low.
"Lying to me right now would be the worst mistake of your life," he murmured. The man swallowed hard but said nothing.
Elsa shivered.
She had seen many sides of Harvey over the past few weeks, the cold businessman, the distant husband, the reluctant protector. But this was something else. Harvey wasn't just rich. He wasn't just powerful. He was dangerous. And for the first time, Elsa realized. She had no idea what kind of world she had just stepped into. They didn't talk much after leaving the hospital. Harvey drove in silence, his fingers tapping rhythmically against the steering wheel. Elsa kept stealing glances at him, watching the way his jaw tightened and relaxed as if he was caught between 1,000 thoughts. When they arrived home, he finally spoke. "You shouldn't have stepped in front of me."
Elsa sighed.
"I wasn't going to let you die."
Harvey let out a dry laugh.
"Do you think I've survived this long by being reckless?" Elsa frowned. "Then why did that man want to kill you?" Harvey didn't answer right away. Instead, he removed his suit jacket and loosened his tie. Then, he finally met her gaze.
"Because of my past." Elsa's breath caught.
She waited. Harvey ran a hand through his hair, his usual calm demeanor slightly cracked. "Before I became the Harvey Sinclair the world knows today, I was someone else.
Someone desperate. Someone naive."
Elsa sat down, her heart pounding. "Go on." He leaned against the wall, his expression unreadable. "When I was younger, I thought love could fix everything," he admitted quietly. "I thought if I gave someone my heart, they'd take care of it." Elsa swallowed hard.
"Olivia."
Harvey let out a bitter chuckle.
"Yeah, Olivia."
Elsa watched as something dark flashed in his eyes. "She wasn't just my fiancée," he continued. "She was my everything. I trusted her more than anyone. And in return..." His fingers curled into fists. "She stole from me, lied to me, and when she was done, she disappeared without a trace, along with millions of dollars." Elsa's stomach twisted. "That's horrible." Harvey shrugged, but there was no humor in it. "It taught me a valuable lesson," he said.
"People don't love men like me.
They love what we can give them." Elsa felt her chest tighten. "Not everyone is like that." Harvey's lips curled into a smirk, but his eyes remained distant. "Maybe," he said. "But I stopped believing in fairy tales a long time ago." Elsa wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong. But as she looked into his guarded eyes, she realized. Harvey wasn't just wounded. He was terrified of being hurt again. And for the first time since she had married him, Elsa made a silent vow. She would prove him wrong, even if it took forever. The air between them was heavy with unspoken words. Harvey had never shared this much about himself before, and Elsa could tell that doing so wasn't easy for him. She shifted on the couch, her eyes locked on him, waiting. Harvey sighed and ran a hand through his dark hair. "You want details," he murmured. Elsa nodded. "Only if you're ready to talk about it." He let out a dry chuckle. "I don't think I'll ever be ready. But if I don't tell you now, you'll keep looking at me like that." "Like what?" "Like I'm a puzzle you want to solve." Elsa smiled faintly.
"Maybe you are."
Harvey shook his head, but something softened in his expression. Then, after a long pause, he finally began. Years ago, Harvey Sinclair had been a different man. Younger, hopeful, naive. He wasn't the ruthless billionaire the world knew today. Back then, he was still building his empire, working sleepless nights to turn his company into something formidable. And through it all, there had been Olivia. She had come into his life like a dream, beautiful, brilliant, and full of charm. She knew exactly what to say, how to make him feel like the most important man in the world. He had fallen hard. "I thought she was my forever," Harvey admitted, his voice distant. "She knew everything about me, my weaknesses, my dreams, my insecurities. And she made me believe she felt the same way." Elsa listened, her heart aching at the vulnerability in his voice. "We were engaged within a year," Harvey continued. "I was convinced I had found the one.
I gave her everything. My time, my love, my trust.
And she played her part perfectly." His jaw clenched.
Until the night everything fell apart.
Elsa leaned in. "What happened?" Harvey's lips curled into a bitter smile. "I found out she never loved me. She was using me from the beginning. He exhaled, his hands tightening into fists. One night, I got a call from my financial team. Millions of dollars had been transferred out of my accounts, illegally. I was confused, thinking it had to be a mistake. But when I tried to call Olivia, her phone was off. Elsa felt a chill crawl up her spine.
Harvey let out a hollow laugh.
I drove straight to our penthouse, expecting to find her there. Instead, I walked into an empty apartment. Every trace of her was gone, her clothes, her jewelry, everything. The only thing she left was a text message. Elsa swallowed. What did it say? Harvey looked at her, his eyes cold.
Thanks for the good times.
But you should know by now, love doesn't exist. Only power does. Elsa gasped. She wrote that. He nodded. And that was the last time I ever saw her. Silence filled the room. Harvey had told this story before, to lawyers, to financial advisors, to his closest friend, Mike. But this was the first time he had spoken about it like this, not just as a transaction gone wrong, but as the moment that had broken him. Elsa reached for his hand before she could stop herself. You didn't deserve that, she said softly. Harvey didn't pull away. Instead, he stared at her, as if trying to decide whether to believe her words. Elsa saw it, the loneliness beneath his armor, the exhaustion of a man who had spent years pretending not to care.
Maybe not, Harvey murmured.
But I was a fool, and I swore I would never be one again. Elsa's fingers curled around his. But you're not a fool now, she said firmly. You're not the same man you were back then. Harvey studied her, his gaze unreadable. Maybe not, he admitted. But that doesn't mean I'll ever believe in love again. Elsa's heart ached at his words, but she didn't argue. Instead, she gave his hand a gentle squeeze. Then I'll believe enough for both of us, she whispered. Harvey Sinclair had no response. And for the first time in years, he let himself hope. Later that day, Elsa was exhausted, but also relieved. Harvey followed her inside, closing the door behind him. She turned to face him. Thank you for opening up to me today. Harvey stepped closer, his intense gaze locking onto hers. I guess I'm beginning to feel vulnerable around you. A warmth spread through Elsa's chest. Still, it means a lot. Harvey tilted his head slightly, studying her.
Elsa's breath hitched.
The tension between them was thick, almost suffocating. Harvey reached out, trailing his fingers lightly down her arm.
I meant what I said, you know.
Which part? She asked, her voice unsteady. The part where I said I wouldn't touch you until you begged for it.
His eyes darkened.
Are you ready to beg yet, Elsa? Her skin burned at his words. Harvey took her silence as a challenge. He closed the distance, his body pressing against hers, trapping her against the wall. You drive me insane, he muttered, his breath warm against her ear. Do you know how hard it is to keep my hands off you? Elsa's pulse skyrocketed. She had spent so many nights wondering what it would feel like to be held by him, touched by him. She swallowed hard. Then, don't. Harvey's entire body tensed.
Don't what?
Elsa's fingers curled into his shirt.
Don't hold back.
A curse slipped from his lips. And then, he kissed her. It wasn't soft. It wasn't gentle. It was hungry, desperate, consuming. Harvey's hands gripped her waist, lifting her slightly as he deepened the kiss. Elsa's body melted against his, heat pooling in her stomach as his lips trailed down her neck. I want you, he growled, his voice hoarse with desire. Elsa gasped as his hand slid beneath her blouse, his touch sending shivers down her spine. Her own hands tangled in his hair, pulling him impossibly closer. Harvey's mouth returned to hers, his kiss searing, possessive, claiming. He lifted her effortlessly, carrying her to the bedroom without breaking the kiss. And that night, Harvey Sinclair finally took his wife. And Elsa. She finally realized she had been longing for it before tonight. Elsa woke up to the warmth of Harvey's arms wrapped securely around her. His body was pressed against hers, his breathing steady and deep. For a moment, she didn't move. She simply lay there, absorbing the unfamiliar but oddly comforting feeling of being held by him. The night before had been intense, overwhelmingly so. The way he touched her, the way he kissed her, the way he made her feel like she was the only woman in the world. It was unlike anything she had ever experienced. A part of her had expected him to leave after it was over, to return to his cold, distant self. But he hadn't. He had stayed. Elsa shifted slightly, trying to get a better look at his face. His features were relaxed in sleep, devoid of the sharp edges he usually wore like armor. He looked vulnerable, human. Her fingers twitched, tempted to trace the faint stubble on his jaw. But before she could act on the impulse, his grip tightened. "Stop moving," he mumbled, voice thick with sleep. Elsa froze.
"You're awake,"
Harvey groaned, burying his face against her shoulder. "I was asleep until you started squirming."
A small smile tugged at her lips.
She wasn't used to this side of him, the lazy, half-asleep, almost playful version of Harvey Sinclair. "You're clinging to me," she pointed out, her voice teasing. His lips brushed against her skin as he murmured, "You're my wife.
"I have the right to hold you." Elsa's breath hitched.
She wanted to argue that their marriage was a contract, that they had spent weeks as near strangers, that just because they had slept together once didn't mean everything had changed. But she couldn't. Because, in truth, everything had changed. Harvey lifted his head slightly, his piercing gaze locking onto hers.
"Do you regret last night?"
Elsa swallowed.
"No."
His expression softened. "Good." He brushed a strand of hair away from her face, his fingers lingering against her cheek. Elsa's heart pounded against her ribs. There was something in his eyes, something raw, something real. She knew she should look away, break the moment before it pulled her in too deep. But she didn't. She let herself sink. And then, without thinking, she whispered, "Why do you always push people away, Harvey?" His body tensed against hers. The softness in his eyes flickered, replaced by something guarded. Elsa instantly regretted asking. "You don't have to answer," she said quickly, shifting as if to put some distance between them. But Harvey didn't let her go. Instead, he exhaled deeply, his thumb absent-mindedly tracing small circles on her waist. "I don't push everyone away," he murmured. Elsa blinked, surprised by his response.
"No."
His lips twitched. "You're still here, aren't you?" Her breath caught in her throat. She opened her mouth, ready to say something, anything, but before she could, Harvey leaned in, pressing a slow, lingering kiss to her forehead. Elsa closed her eyes, letting herself savor the moment. Maybe, just maybe, Harvey Sinclair wasn't as unreachable as she had once thought.
A change in the air.
The rest of the day felt different. Harvey didn't retreat to his office like he usually did. Instead, he stayed close, lingering in the kitchen while Elsa made coffee, sitting beside her on the couch as they watched the news, even joining her when she decided to take a walk outside. It was strange.
Not unwelcome. Just strange. "Are you sick?"
Elsa finally asked as they strolled through the garden, the cool evening air brushing against her skin.
Harvey arched a brow.
"Excuse me." "You're acting nice," she teased. A smirk tugged at his lips. "You sound disappointed."
Elsa laughed softly.
"Not disappointed.
Just confused."
Harvey studied her for a moment before exhaling. "I guess I don't feel the need to be an asshole all the time."
Elsa's eyes widened.
"So you admit you've been an asshole?"
He shrugged. "I never denied it."
Elsa chuckled, shaking her head. "Wow. Progress." They continued walking in silence for a few moments, the sound of rustling leaves filling the air. Then, Harvey spoke again, his tone quieter. "I don't like being vulnerable, Elsa." She turned to look at him. He wasn't looking at her, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "Every time I've let someone in," he continued, "I've regretted it." Elsa frowned. "Because of what happened with your ex?" Harvey's jaw clenched. "Partly. But it goes deeper than that." Elsa waited, sensing that he was struggling to find the right words. My parents never loved each other, he admitted after a long pause. They were just two people stuck in a miserable marriage, pretending everything was fine for the sake of appearances. Elsa's heart ached for him. I grew up watching them tear each other apart behind closed doors, lying to the world outside, he continued. And I promised myself that I would never end up like them. That I would never let myself get attached to someone who could destroy me the way they destroyed each other.
Elsa inhaled sharply. Harvey.
He finally turned to look at her, his expression unreadable. Then I met her, the woman I thought I could trust. And she used me, took my money, shattered my faith in love, and left me with nothing but bitterness. Elsa reached for his hand without thinking, squeezing it gently. Harvey stared down at their joined hands, his fingers tightening around hers. You scare me, Elsa, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper.
Elsa's breath caught.
Why? Because I don't know how to keep my walls up around you. A lump formed in her throat. She had never expected this. Never expected him, the cold, distant billionaire, to be so human. Maybe you don't have to, she whispered. Harvey's eyes searched hers, and Elsa saw it, the deep, aching loneliness he had carried for so long. And in that moment, she made a silent promise to herself. She would prove to him that not everyone leaves. That love wasn't just pain disguised as something beautiful. That she wasn't going anywhere. And maybe, just maybe, Harvey Sinclair would finally believe it.